Welcome to the next lesson of the HTML tutorial. In today's lesson, we will learn about HTML forms. An HTML form is used to collect user input and it will make our web page more dynamic. Normally, the user input is sent to server for some processing. We can also send this data collected from the form directly to the email. The HTML form element is used to create an HTML form. So we use that form element, an HTML form for user input. So we accept the user input, we accept some actions from the user. The HTML form element can contain one or more of the following elements. So let's see what are the elements that HTML form contains. So now we can see the HTML form contains this label, input, the select list, text area, button, field set, legend, data list, output, the option element, opt grouped element. So let's see what are these elements and what are the purpose of these elements. So let me start with the label element. The label element basically is used to label some component in the web page. So I'll use this label element with the input element. So let us talk about this input element and then let's create the web page. The HTML input element is the most used form element and it has many ways, many components. An input element can be displayed in many ways depending upon the type attributes. So just by using this type attribute, we can create different components into the HTML page. So let's see one by one what are these type attributes. So you can see that the type attributes is button, a checkbox, a color, a date type, date time, email type, file type. We have hidden type, image type, month type, number type, password type, radio button type, range type, reset, search, submit, telephone, text, time, URL and week. Now let's begin with the creation of the web page. Let me open a notepad file. So I'll simply open a notepad file and I'll write the text. So I'll begin with the HTML and then I'll write the head tag. Inside the head tag I'll mention the title and let me write the title form example. So I just wrote form example and I'll close the head tag. Now I'll open the body tag and inside this body tag we will enclose the HTML's form element. So let me use this form element. So this is the opening tag of the form element and within this opening and closing tag we'll enclose all the form elements. So let me give a heading. Let's say I want H2, I want to give heading form example. So this is the heading for the web page and let me also make it in center. So this form will be in the center of the page. First let me save this web page and let me save with the name of form. Let me save it with the name HTML form example dot HTML. So I'll save this with the extension. Okay, no, let me change the name. So let me save this with the form example dot HTML. Now I'll go to the HTML file and I'll click and I'll open form example dot HTML. So we can see now this is a simple form with the title. You can see that the title is form example and I have given a heading in form example. Now let me add the HTML elements into this. So I'll start with the label first. So I'll use the label element here. I'll use the label element. So label element will help us in identifying which component we are using. So this is let me use this label element here. You can see label for f name, so that is first name. And now I would like to include input element with type as text. So I want a text box here. So I can simply add input type text. I'll go back to the web page and I'll refresh. Now you can see that this is a text box where I can input the name, and this is the label for this text box. So the user will be able to identify that for what purpose this text box is. Okay, now let me show the purpose of the next input type. So you can see we can add such text boxes here. Let's say if we want to get a password box, so the type should be the password. So we simply specify the type as a password. So I'll copy this password. Let me use a BR tag so that it will be on a new line. Obviously we need to align it properly. So we'll go to the web page and you can see this is another text box. Now what is the difference between this and this text box? It's a text box where you can write the name, but it is a password box. So anything you will write will be in asterisk. So this is a password box. Normally we use in the registration forms or in the login forms. So similarly we can use this text box, the password box. We can also use this input type number just to accept the number. So let me use this number, input type number, and you'll be able to see. Let me refresh. So this is a number, and if I type the alphabets, I'm typing the alphabets but it's not accepting, so it will only accept the numbers. So it's used whenever we need to accept the contact number from the user. So this is a number type. Now let me show you the use of other. This is the check box whenever we need to accept multiple options from the user, like hobby and something like that. This is a check box. We can mention, let's say if I want to accept a hobby game. So let's say if I write cricket, so one check box for the cricket, then the next check box for the next game, that is let's say hockey. So you can see these are the two check boxes we have. So we have these two check boxes. The user can check on multiple check boxes. The next, let's say if I want to accept one from the given option, that is the purpose of the radio button. So we can add the radio buttons. So let me use this radio for the purpose. Let's say if I want your hobby to be music, or I want the hobby to be dancing. So I'll copy this and I'll paste and I'll write dancing. And just to make it in a group, I'll give a name. I'll use the name attribute and will give similar name to both these radio buttons. So I'll give similar name to both these radio buttons. So let's see what will happen. We have two radio buttons and these are in a group, so I'll be able to choose any one of these two. So this is used to accept one from the multiple choices, and checkboxes are used to accept multiple choices. So you can see we have created one group of this radio button. We can use the color input type if we want to add the color selector into our web page. So you can see this will bring the color component from where we can select the color. So this is the color component. You can click on it and you can see that there are lots of color combinations we can select. So this is a color selector you can use into the HTML page. This is a color selector. The next option that we can use is a date. If you want user to enter some date in the form, we want to accept the date. So this is a date attribute we will be adding, and let me refresh the page. You can see that this is the date attribute we can select, and the calendar is here, and we can select any date from this, right? So we can select date from this particular calendar, right? So this is the date attribute that we can, this is the date component that can be added to the web page with the help of the input element and by specifying the type as date. So similarly, this is a date time that will give us to select date as well as the time. So let me use a BR and add this date time type and then go back to the web page. So you can see the difference between date and date time. Now you have the time option also. So these are the hours and these are the minutes. You can select the date as well as you can select the time, right? So this will accept the date as well as the time, right? So this is the date time option we can include in our web page. Let's see what else we have. The email option, it is similar to the text but will be helpful when we validate the email. The input type file, when we want a user to upload a file or to select a file, we need to use this file type that will give us a browser button that will allow us to open our My Computer and choose a file. So this is, you can see the file chooser. You can click on this file chooser and then we'll go inside our web page and we can select any of the files. So you can see that this is the file selected. So the file selected by the user can be accepted by the help of this input type file. So this is the hidden that is used for the backend purpose, will be used by the programmer and will not be visible onto the web page. So we'll have the component, but this component will not be visible onto the web page. So let me actually use this, but we will not be able to see this. So let me add, let me use a BR, let me press Ctrl S, but I'll refresh, but there will be no change because this is hidden, right? So let's go and see what else, what other attributes we can use. We have the image. If I want, let's say, let me add this image type. So this is image type. We'll need to specify the src here and we'll need to specify the name or URL of the image. We also will use the width attribute with this. Let me use 100 and height attribute, let's say 50. So this is the image type, and this tl.png must be in my same directory. So you can see this is the tl.png in the same directory. So this will insert an image into the form. So let me check the name of the file, that this is tl.png. So let me correct the name. This is tl.png. So I'll save, refresh, and you can see that this is the, okay, so this is the image here in the form of button. We can click it and we can add some action to it as well. So this is the image type we can use. The next is the month, which will allow us in a similar way. We have got date, this is month, which will allow to select month only. We have already seen the number type, we had seen the password type, we had seen the radio type, and this is the range type where you want to allow the user to select some range. So this will give you a range bar. It will look something like this. You can see this is a range bar that can be increased or decreased to select a specific range. So this way you can include the range bar in your form. The reset button is it's a very useful input type that will allow us to reset all the data we have filled in the form. So let me refresh this form. So you can see this is the reset button, and once I fill some data and later while I found that the data is not according to my choice and I want to change, so I'll click on reset and you can see everything goes right, gone. So this is the reset button which will reset all the data into your form. So this will allow user to reset all the data. In a similar way, you can use the search bar. It's similar to your text field. We'll add the submit. This is a button, submit button we'll use that will allow user to submit the form details. The time can be added, URL and week can be added. So you can try and add these input type into your form and see the purpose of these. So that's it for the today's lesson. We will talk about some HTML input attributes that we can use with these input types into the next lesson. Thank you so much.